bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it so that she may glean and do not rebuke her. Not only is she going to go down the row, here's what I want you to do. Let her go, the bundles that are already put together, if she wants to take some from that, let her take from that. And by the way, just drop some purposely. Just let some fall by the wayside. So these guys, I want you to get, imagine the boss telling you, look, I want you to get really sloppy. Okay?
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, you just be sloppy with this. You know, I know how you guys around the yard, you grab everything and you put it all in the bundles. And, you know, we harvest a lot, that's great, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to let a little bit of it fall by the way, just keep letting a little bit fall as you're going. So that she doesn't have to work for it, it's already cut. Okay? Now look what happens. So she gleaned in the field until evening and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. We believe an ephah of barley is about 2 liters. Okay. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. So she gives her the leftover from the earlier meal. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed is the one who took notice of you." Another blessing. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and she said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead." The word kindness here is, here's that Hebrew word that's very, very, very rich. Chesed. Chesed is so rich we could spend lifetimes trying to unpack it. It's covenant loyalty, covenant faithfulness, covenant goodness. It's everything that you can think of and more. That's all positive. But it's definitely related to covenant. Then he says this. Then Ruth said, verse 21, Ruth said, "He also said to me, you shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest." And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and that people do not meet you in another field." So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest. And she dwelt with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young women you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Therefore wash yourself and anoint yourself, put on your best garment, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Then it shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do." Now, anybody reading this
Without knowing the context would probably...
without context, you're kind of going, this sounds a little
sneaky.
Potentially, at least, risque. Okay? And I will say this, that there are a lot of terms in this that especially uncover the feet. Okay? Because the feet in Hebrew thinking was a euphemism for private parts. Okay? So, if you look in the book of Leviticus, Numbers, or chapters 18 to 20, to uncover the nakedness of someone was to have relations with them. And to uncover your feet, when you uncovered your feet, you were exposing yourself. Okay, leave it at that. All that to say, I personally don't think that Ruth and Boaz did anything that was wrong on the threshing floor, and we'll get to that in a moment here. So, verse 5, and she said to her, "All that you said to me, I will do." Look at verse 6, chapter 3. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came, the translation says softly, it actually means stealth, uncovered his feet and lay down. Now it happened at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and there a woman was lying at his feet. And he said, "Who are you?" So she answered, "I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative." Now remember what he had said. "I'm glad that you've come under the protection of Adonai, who is the under the wing of Adonai, the God of Israel. She says, and she's making a marriage proposal. Now here's a woman at the threshing floor, a Moabite woman, to a man in Israel, making a marriage proposal. And he said, verse 10, "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear, for I will do for you all that you request. For all the people of my town know that you are a," and it says, "virtuous woman." Interesting enough, Eshet Chayil. Eshet Chayil, which is used only one other place, actually two other places. Proverbs once, but at the end of Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31:10, this alphabetic across it begins Eshet Chayil, which is interesting because the sages of Israel, if you look at the Hebrew text, they put the book of Ruth after the book of Proverbs. Because at the end of Proverbs, you have Eshet Chayil, and then this description of this woman, and then you go right into the book of Ruth. And Ruth is an Eshet Chayil. If you read the description in Proverbs 31:10 and following, that's Ruth. So it's interesting that a Moabite is the one who gives us a demonstration of what this Proverbs 31 woman looks like. And like I said in the Hebrew text, the book of Ruth is put after the book of Proverbs. He says, you're a virtuous woman. Like I said, read Proverbs 31. She's working with her hands. Her family is taken care of. I mean, industrious woman. You really look at Proverbs 31, this woman is, she's doing everything. I mean, she's an industry. She's a force to be reckoned with. Okay? So, she's not, she rises also while it is night, and I mean, this woman is, she's up early, up late, she's doing everything. And that's Ruth, in essence, okay? Caring for her family. Now, he says, verse 12, "Now it is true that I am a close relative." But he says this, "There is a relative closer than I. Stay the night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you. As the Lord lives, lie down until morning." Now I need to explain something to you. And I give you the text on these. Two things in Israel have to be redeemed. Two things have to be redeemed. Put these in the notes, and you have the text. People have to be redeemed, or should be redeemed. If you're an Israelite, and you sell yourself to pay off debt, you're supposed to only work 7 years, and then be released. Okay? Land can be given over for debt longer. It can be given up to 49 years. But on the 50th year, the Yovel, the land is supposed to go back. So let's say I get into debt. And if I go into debt, I give you my land, and I say to you, you can farm my land and pay off your debt, pay off my debt, by obviously planting crops on it and selling those crops. And that pays off my debt. If that doesn't work, then what I can say is, I'm going to work for you and pay off my debt as well. However, I get to go after 7 years if everything works right. The land can still stay with you. Okay? So, we have another issue though. And the only place where this particular issue is ever played out, that we'll ever see it played out, we have what's called Levirate marriage. Now, it's an oddity, I will admit, but it also is connected to the issue of land and inheritance of land. If brother A dies, and his wife and he did not have children, then brother B is supposed to take this now widowed woman, and they are supposed to have relations, and the first male child of that relationship now becomes the inheritor of the estate of the first brother who died. And they raise up a descendant for the first brother, so that his inheritance is also maintained. It's odd. It's called Yavum in Hebrew.
But they don't actually have to get married?
That's an interesting question. Do they have to be married? And then it doesn't give us a whole lot of information. It doesn't actually say. Okay? So the only place that we have any working out of this, which is a very interesting text that also has implications for our text, is Genesis 38. And in that instance, Judah has his first son, He has Tamar as his wife. He dies childless. Onan, the second son, God smites him. Both of them are smitten by God. The text tells us that God pushes the smite button on both those. They did wicked in the eyes of the Lord, and God destroyed them. Now Onan, he doesn't want to raise up. He's willing to have relations with Tamar, but he doesn't want to have any children with her, because he gets more of the estate if his brother has no heir. Okay. Now, what's bizarre is, here again, you have Judah, whose wife dies. He goes to shear sheep in a place called Timnah. And Tamar puts on clothes and dresses like a prostitute. And then Judah has relations with Tamar, and she has twins. Peretz. And Peretz is the one that's in our genealogy here. Okay? So, Peretz and Zerah. And Peretz becomes part of the line of the Messiah. You gotta tell you, if you're looking at this line of Messiah, you're going, these are some seriously whacked out people. I mean, seriously whacked out people. Now, it says, the text tells us, and after this, remember Judah says, you mean she's pregnant? Can you believe her? That's nuts. Let's burn her. Well, obviously post-mortem, but he says, she's got to die. And Tamar says, well, fine, but do you know whose cell phone this is? It's got all your information on it. And he says, oh, that's my stuff. Uh-oh. Eek. So then it says he never has a relationship with her again, but she gives birth to these twins. Okay? I'll show you one of those twins' names in a moment. It comes up in the genealogy. So this whole line of Messiah, you got to look at this and go, you know what? For all the convoluted mess, and here's one of the things that's beautiful. For all the convoluted mess, God is still working the plan. For all this nonsense, for all, you got father-in-laws having a relationship with their daughter-in-law, you got fathers having a relationship with their daughters. It's messed up. You got Rahab, you got Ruth, you got Tamar, Bathsheba. The women are messed up, but it takes two to tango. The guys are just as equally messed up. Okay? I'm not giving the guys a pass on this. They're just equally whacked out. And yet in all this mess, you have God saying, I'm bringing the Messiah. I'm bringing the Messiah to come to this earth to redeem this whole mess. But it's a very, very, to put it in the terms of another song that has another context, it's a very, very broken road that leads to the Messiah. It's a very broken road. It's messed up. And you look at it and you just go, how in the world did this happen? Now let's continue. Then I want to go to verse 14, chapter 3. She lay at his feet in the morning, and she arose before anyone could recognize her. Then she said, he said, do not let it be known that a woman has come to the threshing floor. He's trying to guard her reputation. He also said, bring the shawl that is on you. And when she held it, he measured 6, and it doesn't tell us what measure there. Probably an omer. The text just has a gap there. And laid it on her, and she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, is that you, my daughter? Then she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, these 6, again, a gap or whatever, of barley he gave me, he said to me, do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. Then she said, sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out, for the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day. Now, there's something to be, here, I gotta go back. If you read this, the letter of the Torah, it said a brother would have relations with his brother's wife, his former brother's wife. In this instance, if that were going to be carried out, it would have to be Boaz having relations with Naomi. But we have a problem. Naomi can't have children. And it looks like, if we read the early verses of Ruth, that God hasn't given children to Ruth or Orpah. He shut them up as well, so that they can't have children. Okay. So since Naomi is past the age of bearing children, Ruth is going to, in a sense, be a surrogate for her. So all that to say, what's going on here is spirit of the Torah, not letter of the Torah. Because the Torah didn't address every possibility. So they're looking at this and saying brother, and they're really expanding the concept of what's going on here.
Wasn't there a brother or something he had to go to, he had to give up his right to that also first, though? I thought there's another relative involved that had to...
Yeah, there was someone before Boaz.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting to that, yes. There's a guy before Boaz,
Okay.
who is ahead of him in the pecking order. A closer relative.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it went by order, okay? And if you look at the Torah, it goes from brothers. Now, this is for redemption of land. Okay, but Boaz is tying together, he's going to tie together the concept of redeeming the land that Elimelech left when he went to Moab. And he's going to tie that into marrying and raising up a descendant for Elimelech. He's linking some things that in the biblical text were not linked. Now look what happens, verse 4, chapter 4. Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, here we go, one of those just, and it happened to be things. The close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, come aside, friend. What do your texts say?
Such a one.
Huh?
Such a one.
Such a one. What is so-and-so, Alex so-and-so. Because here's what the text actually says. The Hebrew text says, Paloni Almoni, which is a way of saying Joe Schmo. It's like a fake, it's not a real name. It's used only 2 other places in the Hebrew scripture, and it's used where you want to be purposely evasive, purposely vague. Okay, you don't want to tell anybody where are you going. So it's like my kids when I used to leave the house. Where are you going to go? Somewhere. Well, no kidding. Who are you going to see? Someone. Really? So you're going somewhere to see someone? Well, that was just full of information. I'd like to know a little more specifics, like, So, Paloni Almoni is a way of purposely not giving you any name. I'm not going to give you this man's name. And there's reasons for that. Now look what happens. So he came aside and sat down, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. So they sat down. Then he said to the close relative, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to or is selling to our brother Elimelech. And I thought to inform you, saying, buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, then redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me that I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you. So he's talking about the land. You can redeem the land and buy it back. And you'll get to use it. And if Elimelech, since he's dead, it will revert once you don't have to help Naomi out anymore, it goes into your category. It's yours. Okay? He says, I'll redeem it. Okay, that's all cool. He wants the land. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabite. Now, Ruth never owned the land. But check this out. The wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance. And the close relative said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Here's what happens. If he buys the land, and then Boaz, doing this legal end run, has a child, that child will get the land. So this guy says, no, look, I'm absolving myself of this. You can have the land, you can have Ruth. Okay? Now, here's what's interesting. In the situation where a brother could refuse, he could refuse to have relations with his brother's wife, and in that case, she was supposed to go to the gate. She was supposed to take his sandal off his foot and spit in his face and say, this is what's done to the man who will not have relations with his wife, his brother's wife, to raise up a child for him. You selfish. All right.
Yeah.
So-and-so.
So-and-so, yeah. Son of biscuit eaters, that kind of thing, okay? It's kind of a curse, okay? So, in this instance, since Ruth is not there, this guy takes off his sandal and gives it to Boaz. Basically saying, because you walk on the land with your feet, I'm giving you the right of inheritance. So I'm taking off what I would normally walk on the land, and I'm giving you this sandal, okay? That way you have proof that I turned over my rights. Now, Ruth is not there to spit in his face and do the other stuff, okay? Which is kind of nice for him. So see, it says verse 7, now this was the former custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging to confirm anything. One man took off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was confirmation in Israel. But if you read the whole thing, you go back and look at the Torah, you have to spit in the guy's, she has to spit in his face, and it's humiliation.
Which is why they didn't use his name.
Which is why they didn't use his name, because he's not going to redeem it. But, by the way, he doesn't have to redeem it. He's not technically a brother, unless you expand the meaning of brother to include people way down the line. Okay? Boaz did. Boaz chose to, but he's choosing to go way down the line and to really connect both the marriage inheritance or marriage issue with the land issue, which in the Torah are two, in a sense, separate issues. But he's tying them up. Now look what happens. This is letter of the Torah, not spirit. I mean, the spirit of the Torah, not letter. Look at what happens in verse 8. Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal, and Boaz said to the elders of all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Kilion's and Machlon's from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Machlon, I have acquired as my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren, and from his position at the gate. You are witnesses this day. People say, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel, and may you prosper at Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. May your house, look at this, be like the house of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. In Hebrew Scriptures, it's very clear that the one who gives conception, the one who allows birth to take place, is none other but
God himself.
God himself. Okay? So if you're not having children, the implication is he's withholding children. That's the implication. Okay? If you have children, he's giving his blessing. Okay? Text is clear. Then the women say to Naomi, blessed be the Lord. Verse 13, she bears a son. Then the women say to Naomi, blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a close relative, and made his name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has borne him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. And the neighbor women gave him a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. Obed is the father of Yeshai, the father of David. So Ruth is the great-grandmother of David. And that's what this, in essence, is moving us toward. Now, listen to the genealogy. I want to read it in Hebrew. And it starts off this way. It starts off, Ve'elei Toledot. Anybody hearing that? Ve'elei Toledot knows that this is the language of Genesis. 10 times in Genesis, it starts off these sections in Genesis. Ve'elei Toledot. These are the generations, or these are the narratives about the generations. Okay? So now, he's signaling by saying this that what we're seeing here is a fulfillment of what we started in Genesis. These are the generations. This is carrying on the promise given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? Let's do it in Hebrew. He says, Ve'elei Toledot, Peretz holid et Hezron, Ve'Hezron holid et Ram, Ve'Ram holid et Aminadab, Ve'Aminadab holid et Nachshon, Ve'Nachshon holid et Salma, Ve'Salmon holid et Boaz, Uvoaz holid et Oved, Ve'Oved holid et Yeshai, Ve'Yeshai holid et David. Now we're there. Now we are where we want to. And the reason we told you this story, because let's face it, in a sense, to put it in not so nice terms, somewhat, is, look, who cares about a Moabite woman? Who cares about a nice guy named Boaz? These are little insignificant people in Beit. There's Naomi, yeah, she's a widow. And there's Ruth, a Moabite. And there's this nice guy Boaz who owns some land. But these are just ordinary people who just ordinarily did what God wanted, who lived the spirit of the Torah in a time when everybody else was doing what was right in their own eyes. It was this family that I gave the kingship to. And it's about this king. They are relatives in the genealogical line of David. And everybody knows that David now, if you keep reading, is code for Messiah. He is code for the coming one. In the genealogical, and here's this Moabite woman, all people, who said, your people, my people, your God, my God. And God said, okay, you'll be the one to be the bearer of, and the great-grandmother of the Messiah. Folks, we got a few minutes. Let's take time for questions.